Hello, my name is Serena. I use the pronoun she, her. And today I welcome you to the third episode of the Feeling Good mini-series. So last week, Becky, who's been a teacher for 10 years, shared her lived experience of burnout and how she recovered from it. Today, Becky and I continue our conversation, and in this episode, Becky offers ways in which we can help ourselves prevent burnout. So Becky speaks from a teacher's perspective with some specific tips, for example, in managing marking workloads. But a lot of the tips discussed are of relevance to other work industries too. And this is really important considering the high prevalence of burnout across the UK and the need to raise awareness of the things that we can do to help us thrive in both our professional and personal lives. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you go back and listen to last week's episode before tuning into this one. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode. I'm wondering how do you think we can kind of prevent burnout? How can we kind of bridge? Because I feel like there is a gap also between kind of, recognizing burnout and preventing it. So
Yeah, definitely. Because I wouldn't like anyone to wait until they need to ring a GP and be signed off work before they speak about it. Because
exactly, yeah.
There are lots of things you could do before you reach that point. And I think some of that comes with experience. So now I will make to-do lists, but I'll prioritize the things on the to-do list. What can wait? What needs doing right now? And sort of speak to people about deadlines that aren't going to work for me. I'm a bit better at pushing back and saying, I can do this by then, but perhaps not this. And I think with working part-time school now, I'm better at saying, oh, well, I'm not in on those days, or, I need to have a little bit more time to get that back to you, but I will get it back to you. And also recognizing that not every single lesson that I teach needs to be an outstanding lesson.
Yeah, like you said, letting go of the...
Well, it's that 70% that I mentioned, that my previous teacher mentioned, that working at that rate is enough. They don't need to get 100% of you every single day, because they're not going to get 100% of you anyway, because you're going to be so worn out from trying to achieve that 100%. It's the vicious circle then, isn't it?
Exactly.
I think as well for me, getting resources from places like Twitter and Facebook and the groups that they have has been really brilliant for me. I didn't really engage with social media in that way. To be honest, before I took that step back and reflected on everything in my whole life when I had that burnout period, and then I started to engage more with Twitter. And I know that Twitter can have its positives and negatives, but for me, the positives I take from it are the infinite resources that people really kindly share. So I think using other people's resources is important, and not trying to make everything from scratch yourself. This is obviously specific to teaching. Prioritizing sleep where you can. I mean, I have another baby now, so there's a limit to how much control I have over that right now. But I think you do have control over that side of things, and you can go to bed early. How much work are you actually going to produce that's of good quality after, say, sort of 9 o'clock at night? You're probably going to be working twice the length of time to produce the same amount of work that you could do when you're a bit more fresh in the morning. So it's that, having that strength to close the laptop and say, that's it, I'm done for the day, no more now. Setting kind of like work and the boundaries. I think a difficulty with lockdowns is that we have blurred a lot of boundaries again, and think, oh, it's okay to just get the laptop out and do some work here at home because I'm used to working at home now. So actually setting some boundaries for yourself about when you're prepared to work and when you're not, making plans that you can't cancel because you are making that time for you, and it's not work time, so work will just have to fit around it. The pupils, if you're talking about it in a teaching from a teaching perspective, the pupils will survive if you don't have a minute by minute plan for the next day. And actually, you're working with real life human beings, so the best laid plans will ultimately not go to plan when you have lots of different characters in the room with lots of things going on themselves. You don't know what's going on at home. You don't know where the conversations will take you, which direction the debate will go. So you have to have that flexibility to work in that type of job anyway. So what's the point in planning every single minute of the lesson?
Yeah.
Talking to your department, I did do that, but maybe where possible, kind of modeling that it's okay to go home a bit earlier sometimes, some nights a week. Certainly if I was a department lead, I think I would really make a point of modeling that I went home earlier some nights a week, or make a point of saying, instead of how late I stayed up working last night, talk about something social that I did to make the rest of my team know that they have permission to do these things during the week. They don't have to just be working all the time. Having downtime before bed, no screens before bed, you know.
Yeah. All these things that I'm, actually, I feel like people are aware of, but it can be kind of challenging to put into practice. I don't know, maybe because it's like this idea of, not feeling like actually your well-being is a priority, or not allowing yourself to give it as a priority. But
and I think actually something else that helped me was other people reassuring me of that.
Yeah.
People say, actually, it's okay to have this downtime. Actually, it's okay to prioritize your well-being. Actually, work isn't everything. Your pupils will be okay if you don't plan every lesson to every minute. You need to hear people who maybe with more experience or in positions of authority that you feel you respect say that more.
Yeah, creating that culture of
it's got to come from the top where you feel that that's okay. I mean, I'm no slacker. I have always, in every job I've ever had, I've worked really hard, so I know that I am no slacker. But still, even now I'm much better at managing my time and saying no to things, and thinking that I'm thinking about my well-being more. I still have this voice in the back of my head sometimes that thinks, oh, well, they think I'm doing a good enough job there. They think that I'm just being a bit lazy on that bit, or will they not think I'm putting the effort in that other people are? And of course they're not thinking that, because time and again proved that I will do the job, and I'll do the job well, and I'm passionate about the job. There is that little voice that's really hard to quieten, no matter how many years you've been doing a job for.
No.
But I think, like I say, the more people you talk to that give you that permission that it's okay to prioritize yourself and your needs and everything else, to make sure you are well enough and happy enough to be doing a good job because you've taken care of yourself first. I think we do that, the better we are in our work life as well.
Yeah. And finding the ways in which work for you as well, in terms of, like, you mentioned, like, the resources and stuff. There's quite a variety of different things you can do to prioritize your mental health. So, like, finding, I don't know, skills or activities and stuff that work for you personally.
Yeah, and again, that does come with experience. You've learned these sort of little tricks in any job, don't you?
Yeah.
Being an English teacher, one of the things that comes up a lot is marking, because that's always there's always a lot of marking to do, and English teachers are kind of renowned for having a lot to do. So with things like that, for me, it was learning about how much marking could I do as I'm doing the rounds in the lesson. If I'm talking to pupils anyway, giving them feedback on the spot, if I've got a marking policy I have to follow at school, because that's what some people say sometimes. It's all very well saying do live marking in a lesson and then you won't have as many books to take home. But if you've got a specific marking policy at your school that requires you to do things written in books a certain number of times a week or a month or whatever, it's very hard for you to sort of say, well, I'm not doing that, because that's what your school policy is. But if you can find shortcuts, like doing some of the marking in the lesson as you're walking around talking to them anyway, doing peer assessments instead of the teacher marking it, setting tasks that are easy for the whole class to mark themselves, their own pieces of work, instead of you having to take loads home, planning your marking for the term, so that you think about when are the periods of time when you're going to have longer pieces to mark, and making sure they don't coincide with mock assessments that you've got that you're going to carry out, or parents' evenings, making sure that you're aware of those dates that are coming up so you can avoid that and plan ahead. I think as well, in your personal life, if you've got a house move or you've got something big coming up in your personal life, don't make that the same week that you've decided to bring home every class's book, because you've set them all a really
really good advice. Yeah.
And it seems, again, it's like it's nothing groundbreaking. It's like you said, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just sort of it's reminding yourself to do these things, I think, and not just getting caught up in the busyness of the school term and forgetting about it all. It's sort of maybe having a little list somewhere to remind yourself of all these little tricks and stick to them.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of touched on this question already, but I just wonder for the final, because it's the final question I will ask you, Becky, about what advice would you give to another teacher who's experiencing burnout?
Yeah, I think if you've reached the point of burnout, you need to do something about it. Like we want to be more preventative, more proactive rather than reactive. So try not to reach that point of burnout by speaking to your line manager or a trusted colleague when you first start to feel it, maybe a more experienced colleague to get some of those tips and tricks. I've said things like Twitter and Facebook groups quite invaluable, because if you don't feel comfortable talking to your real life colleagues about it because you think there's going to be that kind of badge of honor, we're all busy, we're all experiencing this, so no one is worse than anybody else, then put an anonymous question on one of these teacher groups on Facebook, Twitter, get some advice from people that you don't know in real life if that's easier. I think the key is talking about it in a platform you need to, but don't keep it to yourself, because the longer you keep it to yourself, the more it manifests, and then you reach that point of burnout like I did. Yeah. And the healing part of that is longer than if you tried to nip it in the bud a bit earlier, managed it, sort of recognized it in yourself a little bit earlier. But it's okay to look after yourself, and it's not selfish. It's not a bad thing to know that you need to be happy and well enough to be able to do your job effectively.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message to get across. I'm very very grateful for our conversation today, Becky. It's been a pleasure to talk about all of these things. For the next podcast in the mini series, we'll be talking about some positive mental health skills, which hopefully also might be helpful in dealing with burnout. And then I'll be speaking to you on the fourth podcast again, Becky, which I'm really excited about, talking about supporting pupils. But thank you again. I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for hosting. I've enjoyed it too.
I think it would be useful to mention just Becky and I, we're part of the Feeling Good for Schools program. And that is a fully resourced program that supports pupils' well-being, but also within that, teachers and parents and carers get access to free access to the Feeling Good app as well. So just thought it would be important to mention that about a bit about what we do as well. So thank you, Becky, and thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Bye.